You've been here before. Not here, watching this video. I mean here, this exact situation, this exact feeling. Maybe it's the relationship that ended the same way the last one did. The job you quit for the same reason you quit the one before it. The argument you keep having, different person, same script. You told yourself last time it would be different, and you meant it. So here's the question nobody is asking you. What if the problem isn't them? What if the problem isn't bad luck or bad timing or the wrong people finding you? What if the pattern is you and you have no idea why? There's a concept in psychology that almost nobody teaches in school, even though it explains more about human behavior than almost anything else. It's called the shadow. And before you click off thinking this is about to get mystical, stay with me. Because what I'm about to describe is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the pattern keeps happening, and the one thing that actually breaks it. The shadow isn't a metaphor for your demons or your dark side. It's a psychological term coined by Carl Jung, one of the most influential minds in the history of psychology, and it refers to something very specific. The parts of yourself you decided, usually as a child, were not acceptable. Maybe you were too loud, and you learned to be quiet. Maybe you were too needy, and you learned not to ask. Maybe you got angry once, and the reaction you received was so frightening that you decided, I will never do that again. So you buried it. You took that piece of yourself and you pushed it down, deep into what Jung called the shadow, the unconscious part of your personality that you're not aware of, and definitely not in control of. Here's where it gets interesting. The thing you buried doesn't disappear. It drives. Psychologists estimate that somewhere between 90 and 95% of your daily behavior runs on autopilot. Not conscious decisions, not deliberate choices, patterns, scripts, automatic responses you didn't author. They were written for you early by people who were also running on autopilot. And the shadow? The shadow sits in that 90%. It shapes who you're attracted to before you understand why. It makes you react with rage to something that shouldn't bother you. It causes you to sabotage things right when they start going well. You've probably noticed these moments. The eruption that surprised even you. The inexplicable self-destruction just as something good was beginning. The exhaustion you feel around certain people for no clear reason. That's not you being broken. That's your shadow trying to get your attention. Here's how this actually works in your nervous system, because this isn't just a philosophy. It has a physical mechanism. When you're young and something feels too big to process, shame, rejection, rage, grief, terror, your brain does something brilliant and terrible at the same time. It compartmentalizes. Brilliant. You survived. Terrible. It's still in there. The prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, goes partially offline, and the experience gets stored in the body and the limbic system before it can be fully processed into a coherent memory. It gets frozen there, not deleted, frozen. And every time something in your present life resembles the original threat, your brain fires the same alarm. Decades later. This is why the pattern keeps repeating. You're not reliving the present. You're defending against the past. Your partner forgets to text back, and you feel abandoned, not because of them, but because of a 6-year-old version of you who learned that silence meant danger. Your boss gives critical feedback and you shut down completely, not because the feedback was cruel, but because a 15-year-old version of you decided that being criticized meant being worthless. Jung had a phrase for this. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Read that again. The pattern you keep experiencing as something happening to you is being generated by you. Not because you're broken, but because a part of your psyche that was never seen, never integrated, never resolved, is still running the show. When something triggers a disproportionate reaction in you, when someone's behavior makes you genuinely furious or deeply contemptuous or unreasonably defensive, Jung argued that this intensity is a signal. It means that quality, or something adjacent to it, lives in your shadow. The person who can't stand arrogance often has buried ambition they were shamed for. The person disgusted by neediness often has deep unmet needs they were taught to deny. The person enraged by dishonesty often has things they've never been fully honest about, sometimes not even with themselves. This isn't about blame, it's about information. Your strongest reactions are a map of where your shadow lives, and if you never look at the map, you stay lost. Here's what makes shadow work genuinely urgent, not just interesting. The shadow doesn't stay quietly contained. The more you repress it, the more energy it takes to keep it down. And energy spent on suppression is energy not available for living. This is why highly controlled people are often exhausted for reasons they can't explain. This is why people who seem to have it together can suddenly collapse under seemingly minor stress. This is why you can want a good relationship with every conscious thought you have and still end up in the same dynamic again. You can't willpower your way out of a pattern you can't see. So what actually works? Here's what the research and Jung says to do. Shadow work is not a single technique. It's a practice. And it has a few entry points that are accessible without a therapist, though working with a therapist accelerates it dramatically. Let's go through 3 of them. The first is the trigger journal. For the next 2 weeks, every time you have a disproportionate reaction to something, anytime you feel an intensity that doesn't quite match the situation, write 3 things down. 1, what just happened in plain factual terms. 2, what I felt in my body, not in my head, in my body. Chest tightening, stomach dropping, jaw clenching. 3, what does this feeling remind me of? Not explain, remind. Not, why am I feeling this? Ask, when have I felt this before? That third question is the one that changes things. Because almost every adult overreaction has a childhood address. You're not looking to blame your past. You're looking to see it clearly enough that it stops steering your present without your permission. The second method is the one most people skip, and it's the most powerful. It's the mirror exercise. Take someone who genuinely bothers you, not someone who mistreated you, someone whose mere existence irritates you or whose specific quality makes your skin crawl. Write down exactly what it is about them that you can't stand. Be specific, not they're selfish. What does the selfishness look like? What specifically do they do? How does it make you feel? Then ask, where in my life am I doing a version of this that I haven't acknowledged? This is hard. It requires radical honesty, and most people won't do it because the ego's entire job is to maintain the story that we are fundamentally different from the people who bother us. We're not. We're mirrors. This doesn't mean you're wrong to set a boundary. It means your strongest reactions are showing you something about yourself that's worth knowing. The third method is a dialogue with the shadow. This is the one that sounds strange until you try it. Jungian therapists often use a practice called active imagination, which, stripped of its mystical framing, is simply this. You write a dialogue with a part of yourself. Pick a quality you've always denied in yourself. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's arrogance. Maybe it's laziness. Maybe it's a deep desire for attention you've never admitted to anyone. And you write, in first person, what that part would say if it could speak. Not what you want it to say, what it would actually say, as honestly as you can. What does your anger want you to know? What does your sadness need you to hear? The goal isn't to release these qualities into your life unchecked. The goal is integration, acknowledging that these energies exist in you, so they stop operating from the basement of your psyche, where you have no visibility or control. Integration doesn't mean becoming your shadow. It means bringing those energies into the light where you can actually choose what to do with them, instead of having them choose for you. It's that a significant portion of your behavior is being driven by parts of your psyche that you've never met. Parts that were formed under pressure, in moments of survival, by a version of you that did the only thing they could with what they had at the time. That version of you protected you, but they're still driving. Shadow work is the process of taking the wheel back, not through force, not through judgment, not by deciding those parts of you are bad and doubling down on suppression, but through curiosity, through willingness to look. Jung also said this: the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Complete self-acceptance doesn't mean complacency. It means finally seeing the full picture of who you are, including the parts that got buried, so you can actually make conscious choices about who you become. That's the work. It's uncomfortable. It's ongoing. And there is genuinely nothing more useful you can do with your time. If you want to start today, not next week, today, do the trigger journal for the next 7 days. 1 entry per day. 3 questions. 5 minutes. That's it. The insights will come quickly. They usually do. And if you want to go deeper, there are 3 books I'd point you to, which I'll link in the description. They're the clearest, most accessible writing on this subject that exists outside of a therapist's office. The work starts with seeing. You just started. If this video helped you see something you hadn't seen before, share it with someone who needs to hear it, not to fix them, because you recognize the pattern. And if you want more on the psychology behind the behaviors that hold people back, the next video is right there. I'll see you in it.